You can fool the entire world. You can build a facade so perfect that your neighbors envy you, your boss praises you, and your peers respect you. You can smile at the right moments, say the right words, and post the right photos. But there is one person you can never fool. You know exactly who you are when the door is locked, the notifications are silenced, and the lights go out. That version of you, the one who exists in the silence, is the only one that matters. Most people are nothing more than actors. They have been conditioned since childhood to perform for a treat. We got gold stars in school for sitting still. We got grades for memorizing answers. We get paychecks for showing up on time, and likes for showing off our highlights. We have been trained to outsource our self-worth to the crowd. We have become addicted to the sound of applause. But what happens when the theater empties? What happens when there is no one left to clap? For the majority, the work stops. The discipline evaporates. If no one is watching, they cut the corner. If no one is checking, they skip the rep. If no one is listening, they complain. They live their lives waiting for permission or praise, drifting through the hours that are not supervised, wasting the most valuable currency they possess, their private time. This is why you feel stuck. This is why, despite your public wins, you feel a gnawing sense of fraudulence internally. You know that you are capable of more, but you only deliver your best when the stakes are visible. You are a lion in public, but a sheep in private. This audiobook is the antidote to that performance. We are not here to talk about hustle culture or performing for social media. We are here to dismantle the need for an audience entirely. We are going to explore the psychology of self-command. We are going to build a new operating system for your mind, one that functions with the same ruthless precision at 3 a.m. in an empty room as it does at 3 p.m. in a boardroom. This journey is about moving from external validation to internal verification. It is about establishing a standard of conduct that is so high and so personal that the opinions of others become irrelevant noise. True leadership is not about managing a team. It is about managing your own impulses when you are tired, bored, and alone. If you cannot lead yourself through the fog of a Tuesday morning when you don't feel like moving, you will never truly lead anyone else. The principles we will cover are not comfortable. They require you to look at your own excuses and dismantle them piece by piece. We will walk through the mechanics of the silent standard, the architecture of willpower, and the art of respecting yourself enough to keep the promises you make in the dark. This is a shift from looking good to being good. It is the transition from reputation to character. Before we begin this descent into the reality of who you truly are, take a moment to commit to this process. If you are ready to stop performing and start living, show your intent. If you have found value in this channel, please click the like button and subscribe to the premier audiobooks. It is a small action, but it signals to yourself and to us that you are here for the long haul. Now, forget the crowd, forget the accolades, forget the world outside. We are entering the empty room. Welcome to the discipline of the unseen. Chapter 1. The Audience of One. When the heavy deadbolt of your front door slides into place, who do you become? This is the most dangerous question you will ever answer. For most of your life, you have been trained to view yourself through the eyes of others. You dress for the reflection you see in the mirror only because you anticipate how that image will be received by the world. You speak words that have been calculated to earn agreement. You work hard when the manager is hovering over your desk, and you slacken your pace the moment they turn the corner. You are a creature of reaction, constantly adjusting your behavior based on the temperature of the room. You are a chameleon blending in to survive, or a peacock strutting to be seen. But the door is locked now. The blinds are drawn. The phone is in the other room. There is no manager. There is no audience. There are no likes to be harvested, no promotions to be earned, and no applause to break the silence. In this vacuum, the performance dies. And when the performance dies, the truth remains. If you are like most people, this silence is terrifying. You fill it immediately. You turn on the television to drown out your thoughts. You scroll through feeds to see what the audience is doing. You frantically search for a distraction because the reality of your own company is unbearable. Why? Because deep down, you suspect that without the audience, you cease to exist. You have spent decades building a persona that you have neglected to build a person. This chapter marks the end of that era. To lead yourself, you must first understand that the only applause that matters is the applause that never comes. You must learn to perform for an audience of one. The addiction to the external. We live in an age of performative excellence. We have monetized our lifestyles and curated our struggles. Even our vulnerability is strategic. We share our failures only after we have overcome them, wrapping them in a neat narrative arc that makes us look heroic. We do not confess sins, we humble brag about our journeys. This creates a psychological fracturing. You develop two distinct identities, the public avatar and the shadow self. The public avatar is disciplined. It posts pictures of healthy meals, stacks of books, and early morning gym sessions. It speaks in affirmations and projects confidence. But the shadow self, the one that lives in the empty room, is often rotting. The shadow self hits the snooze button 5 times. The shadow self eats garbage when no one is looking. The shadow self procrastinates until the anxiety of a deadline forces action. The gap between these two selves is where your self-respect goes to die. Every time you act one way in public and another way in private, you are signaling to your subconscious mind that you are a fraud. You are telling yourself that you cannot be trusted. You might fool the world, but you cannot fool the nervous system. This is why you feel anxious. This is why you feel a creeping sense of imposter syndrome. It is not because you aren't skilled. It is because you know you are a liar. You crave external validation because you have no internal collateral. You need someone else to tell you that you are good because you have no evidence of it when you are alone. You are bankrupting your character to buy a reputation. The empty room standard. To fix this, we must introduce a new metric for success. We call this the empty room standard. Imagine you are a musician. You can sell out a stadium with 50,000 people screaming your name, lights flashing and adrenaline pumping. In that environment, it is easy to play with passion. The energy of the crowd carries you. You are high on the collective emotion. But now, imagine playing that same set in an empty concrete basement. No lights, no acoustics, no people. Just you and the instrument. Can you play with the exact same intensity? Can you hit the notes with the same precision? Can you pour the same amount of soul into the music when the only thing absorbing the sound is the damp concrete walls? If the answer is no, you are not a musician. You are an entertainer. You are not driven by the craft. You are driven by the reaction to the craft. Leading yourself means playing the stadium set in the basement every single day. It means cleaning the corner of the room that no one sees with the same attention to detail as the center of the floor. It means finishing the rep when the trainer isn't counting. It means writing the sentence perfectly, even if it's just for a journal entry that will be burned tomorrow. The standard must be decoupled from the outcome. The quality of your actions must be independent of who is watching. This is difficult because it goes against our biology. We are social primates. We are wired to seek status within the tribe. Historically, status meant survival. If the tribe praised you, you ate. If the tribe shunned you, you starved.
But we no longer live in small tribes on the savannah. We live in a world where we can simulate status without earning it. We can hack the signaling mechanism. Therefore, you must override your biology. You must stop looking at the scoreboard and start looking at the game film. The world judges you by what you get, The money, the car, the body, the title. You must judge yourself by what you do to get it. The internal tribunal. You need to establish an internal tribunal. In a court of law, there is a judge, a jury, and a prosecutor. In your life, up until now, those roles have been filled by your parents, your teachers, your bosses, and society. You have stood on the witness stand of your own life, pleading your case to them, hoping for a lenient sentence or a reward. Fire them. All of them. From this moment forward, you are the judge. You are the jury. You are the executioner of your own potential. When you fail to wake up on time, there is no one there to scold you. That is a tragedy, because it means you get away with it. And getting away with mediocrity is the fastest way to entrench it. You must convene the internal tribunal. You must look at the evidence of your morning. You said you would rise at 6 a.m. You rose at 7 a.m. Guilty. There is no punishment the world can inflict on you that is worse than the knowledge that you betrayed your own will. When you lead yourself, the punishment is the disappointment you feel in your own lack of command. That sting, that sharp acidic taste of self-betrayal must become your primary deterrent. Conversely, the praise of the world must become meaningless compared to the verdict of the tribunal. If the world calls you a genius, but you know you cut corners and delivered a B- effort, the praise should taste like ash in your mouth. You should feel insulted that they have such low standards that they would applaud your mediocrity. But if the world criticizes you or ignores you, yet you know you delivered absolute excellence, that you gave every ounce of blood you had to the task, then you should sleep like a baby. The opinion of the crowd is noise. The opinion of the audience of one is law. The mechanic of self-respect. How do you build this? How do you transition from an external validation junkie to a sovereign leader? It starts with the microtransactions of integrity. Self-respect is not a feeling, it is a receipt. It is the proof of purchase. You cannot affirm your way into self-respect. You cannot stand in front of a mirror and chant, "I am a disciplined leader," until you believe it. Your brain is too smart for that. It has the receipts. It remembers that you skipped the workout. It remembers that you didn't read the book. It remembers that you scrolled TikTok for 2 hours instead of working on your business. To build the audience of one, you must start stacking receipts. You need to set a task that is small, invisible, and non-negotiable. It could be making your bed with military precision. It could be reading 10 pages. It could be sitting in silence for 10 minutes. The content of the task matters less than the contract of the task. You say, "I will do this." Then, when no one is watching, you do it. Every time you complete this loop, you earn a credit of self-trust. You are proving to the audience of one that your word is iron. Over time, this creates a new identity. You start to view yourself as the kind of person who does what they say they will do. This is the foundation of confidence. Confidence is not thinking you can do it. Confidence is knowing you will do it, because you have a track record of doing it when it was hard and when it was lonely. Think of the craftsmen of old, the Japanese sword maker or the Swiss watchmaker. They would spend hundreds of hours polishing components that would be hidden inside the mechanism, never to be seen by the customer. Why? Why waste the effort on the invisible? Because they knew it was there. If they left a scratch on the inner gear, the watch would still tell time. The customer would never know, but the watchmaker would know, and that knowledge would corrupt his soul. It would lower his standard. If he accepts a scratch on the inside, eventually he will accept a scratch on the outside. Excellence is a holistic state. You cannot be excellent in public and average in private. The rot spreads. The terror of total responsibility. There is a dark side to this. The audience of one offers no sympathy. When you operate by external standards, you can blame the environment. I didn't get the promotion because the boss doesn't like me. I didn't lose weight because the holidays were stressful. You can always find a co-conspirator to validate your excuses. Friends will tell you, it's okay, you tried your best, even when you didn't. The audience of one is ruthless. It deals only in binary outcomes. Did you do it, or did you not? There are no mitigating circumstances in the empty room. You are either leading yourself, or you are drifting. This total responsibility is heavy. It crushes weak people. They run back to the crowd because the crowd is forgiving. The crowd allows for good enough. But you are not here for good enough. You are here to master yourself. You must learn to love this weight. The burden of total responsibility is the price of freedom. If you are responsible for everything, you are in control of everything. If your private actions dictate your public reality, then you have the power to change your reality by changing your private actions. The test of the shadows. Here is your assignment for this chapter. It is a test of the audience of one. Identify one area of your life where you have been performing for the crowd. Maybe it is your career, where you only work hard when a deadline is visible. Maybe it is your fitness, where you only run hard when you track it on an app to share later. Now, take one action in that arena that is completely invisible. Go for a run without your phone or watch. Do a work project that has no name on it just to make the company better. Clean a mess that isn't yours and tell absolutely no one. Observe the feeling. You will feel a strange tension, an urge to tell someone, to get credit, to cash in the chip. Suppress that urge. Let the energy of that secret action stay inside you. Let it build pressure. That pressure is the forging of character. When you can do a great thing and have zero desire to tell a soul, you have arrived. You have become an audience of one. You are no longer dancing for pennies. You are building an empire in the silence. The world is noisy. Everyone is screaming, "Look at me!" Be the one who stands in the corner, silent, watching, knowing that you possess a power they cannot comprehend, the power to command yourself when the lights go out. Chapter 2. The Art of Self-Deception. Who is the most persuasive liar in your life? It isn't the politician on the news. It isn't the marketing department of a corporation selling you a product you don't need. It isn't even your toxic ex-partner or a manipulative coworker. The most dangerous, skilled, and relentless liar you will ever meet is the voice in your own head. You believe you are a rational agent. You believe you make decisions based on logic, facts, and your best interests. But if we were to play back a recording of your internal dialogue from the last 24 hours, we would find a masterclass in fraud. We would hear you negotiating with yourself. We would hear you rewriting history to make your failures look like bad luck. We would hear you selling yourself on the idea that tomorrow is a magical land where you will suddenly possess the energy, discipline, and focus that you lack today. Before you can lead yourself, you must stop lying to yourself. This is the hardest work you will do because the liar and the listener are the same person. The deception is seamless. You don't even know you are doing it. You have built a fortress of rationalizations to protect your ego from the painful truth of your own mediocrity. The corrupt accountant. Imagine a company that is bleeding money. The sales are down, the expenses are up, and bankruptcy is imminent. But the accountant is cooking the books. He hides the losses in complicated spreadsheets. He categorizes vacations as business trips. He projects massive profits for the next quarter based on zero evidence. On paper, the company looks stable. The CEO sleeps soundly at night believing the lie. But the math doesn't care about the spreadsheet. The bank account will eventually hit zero. You are that corrupt accountant. Your life is the company. Your habits are the revenue. Your excuses are the cooked books. You tell yourself, "I worked hard today," because you sat at your desk for 8 hours. But the audit reveals you spent 4 of those hours checking email, 2 hours scrolling social media, and only 90 minutes doing deep work. You labeled attendance as performance. That is fraud. You tell yourself, I'm watching my diet, but you ignore the handful of snacks you grabbed while walking through the kitchen because they didn't count. You labeled untracked calories as 0 calories. That is fraud. Why do we do this? We do it to avoid the pain of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort experienced when your beliefs conflict with your actions. If you believe you are a high achiever, but you spent the day procrastinating, your brain panics. It needs to resolve the tension. You have 2 choices: change the action, get back to work; change the narrative, lie. Option 1 is hard. It requires energy and will. Option 2 is easy. It requires only a story. I needed to rest so I can be fresh tomorrow. I was doing research. I deserved a break. The tension vanishes. You feel better, but you have just taken a step toward your own destruction. The just this once virus. The most potent weapon in the arsenal of self-deception is the phrase, just this once. This phrase is a sedative. It lulls your standards to sleep. You tell yourself that skipping the gym today is an isolated incident. You tell yourself that eating the junk food this one time won't derail your progress. You treat the deviation as a microscopic blip on the radar. But just this once is never just once. It is a breach of contract. When you allow an exception, you are not just skipping a task, you are rewiring your neural pathways. You are teaching your brain that your standards are negotiable. You are establishing a precedent. In law, a precedent is powerful. Once a court rules on a case, future cases are decided based on that ruling. When you rule that feeling tired is a valid reason to quit, you have set a legal precedent in the court of your mind. Next time you feel tired, your brain will cite the case of you versus the gym from last Tuesday, and you will quit again. High performers understand that there is no such thing as an isolated incident. How you do anything is how you do everything. If you compromise on the small things, the rot will inevitably spread to the big things. The just this once virus multiplies until exceptions become the new rule. The mythology of tomorrow. We all worship a deity named Future Me. Present me is tired. Present me is stressed. Present me is overwhelmed. But future me, that guy is a machine. Future me wakes up at 4 a.m. without an alarm. Future me loves eating raw kale and running marathons. Future me has limitless willpower. So we dump our responsibilities onto this imaginary superhero. I'll start writing the book on Monday. I'll clean the garage next weekend. I'll get serious about my finances next month. This is the most tragic form of self-deception because it disguises procrastination as planning. You feel productive when you schedule a task for the future. You get a hit of dopamine just by writing it on the calendar. You feel the relief of the work being handled even though you haven't lifted a finger. Here is the brutal truth. Future me does not exist. When you wake up on Monday, you will not be future me. You will be present me again. You will wake up with the same brain, the same fatigue, and the same temptations you have right now. By deferring the pain to a future date, you are not solving the problem. You are compounding the interest. You are sending a massive bill to a version of yourself that is no better equipped to pay it than you are today. Leading yourself requires the death of future me. You must accept that the only time you have any power over is the immediate, breathless now. If you cannot do it today, you will likely not do it tomorrow. The inflation of effort. Another layer of the lie is the inflation of effort. We love to grade ourselves on a curve. If you ask the average person how hard they work, they will say 110%. If you ask them how disciplined they are, they will say very. We view our intentions as actions. We judge ourselves by what we meant to do, while we judge others by what they actually did. This is the busy fool syndrome. You confuse motion with progress. You run around all day answering calls, putting out fires, feeling important, and exhausting yourself. You collapse into bed thinking you were productive. But if we look at the output, the actual needle-moving results, there is nothing there. You were not working, you were spinning. Real work is hard. Real work requires deep focus, uncomfortable problem solving, and the risk of failure. Spinning is easy. It keeps your hands busy, but your mind safe. You deceive yourself into thinking that exhaustion equals excellence. It does not. You can dig a hole and fill it back up for 12 hours straight. You will be exhausted, but you will have accomplished nothing. To lead yourself, you must separate activity from achievement. You must look at your day with cold, clinical detachment. Did you build the asset? Did you make the sale? Did you write the chapter? If the answer is no, then your exhaustion is irrelevant. The forensic audit. So, how do we dismantle this complex web of lies? We conduct a forensic audit. You cannot change what you do not track. The lie thrives in the dark. It thrives in vague estimates and subjective feelings. To kill the lie, you must shine the blinding light of data upon it. For the next 3 days, you are going to track every minute of your life. This is not a metaphor. You will carry a notebook. Every 30 minutes, you will write down exactly what you did, not what you planned to do, what you did. 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Stared at screen, checked news. 8:30 to 9 a.m. Replied to 3 emails, low priority. 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Got coffee, chatted with coworker. This log will be painful to read. You will realize that your 10-hour workday is actually 2 hours of work and 8 hours of distraction. You will realize that your strict diet has holes in it large enough to drive a truck through. You will realize that your no time for the gym excuse is a lie, considering you found 90 minutes for Netflix. The data cuts through the deception.
You cannot argue with the log. It shows you the raw footage of your life, stripping away the special effects and the editing. Once you see the data, the rationalizations collapse. You can no longer say, I don't have time. You have to say, I chose to waste time. You can no longer say, I'm trying my best. You have to say, I am operating at 40% capacity. This admission is devastating, but it is also liberating. As long as you believe the lie that you are doing your best, you are stuck. You have hit a ceiling. But the moment you realize you are operating at 40%, you realize you have 60% of untapped potential waiting for you. The audit reveals the reservoir of power you have been hiding from yourself, the semantic firewall. Finally, you must police your language. The words you use are the bricks you use to build your reality. Self-deception hides in passive language. I ran out of time. No, time is not a tank of gas. It doesn't run out. It elapses. You prioritized other things. Say, I prioritized low-value tasks over high-value ones. I forgot. No, you didn't care enough to create a system to remember. Say, I did not value this enough to write it down. I can't. Usually, this means I won't. I can't get up early is a lie. If your house was on fire, you would get up. Therefore, you can get up. You are choosing to stay in bed because the comfort outweighs the desire for the goal. Say, I am choosing comfort over my goals. Do you feel the difference? Passive language makes you a victim of circumstance. Honest language makes you an agent of choice. When you strip away the passive voice, you are left with the raw agency of your life. It is uncomfortable. It makes you feel exposed, but it is the only place where leadership begins. You cannot lead a victim. If you paint yourself as the victim of time, genetics, or luck, you cannot command the ship. You are just a passenger. The mirror of truth. This chapter is not about beating yourself up. It is not about self-loathing. It is about respect. Lying to someone is a sign of disrespect. You lie to a child because you think they can't handle the truth. You lie to an enemy to mislead them. When you lie to yourself, you are treating yourself like a child or an enemy. You are saying, I am too weak to handle reality. Stop it. Respect yourself enough to demand the truth. Look in the mirror, not the physical mirror, but the psychological one, and stare directly at your flaws.
Acknowledge the laziness, acknowledge the fear, acknowledge the envy, acknowledge the waste. Only when you name the demon can you banish it. The art of self-deception is a skill you have practiced for years. You are a master painter, covering the cracks in the wall with beautiful murals, but the wall is crumbling. Put down the brush, pick up the sledgehammer, break down the facade until you hit the solid brick of reality. It might be ugly and it might be small, but at least it is real. And you can build something tall on top of real. You can't build anything on top of a lie.
Chapter 3. The Silent Standard. If you look around you, you will notice a terrifying pattern. The world is designed to keep you okay. The school system is designed to make you a compliant worker. The healthcare system is designed to keep you just healthy enough not to die, but rarely optimal. The corporate ladder is designed to extract the maximum productivity for the minimum pay. Society has a standard for you. But here's the catch. That standard is incredibly low. The social standard is based on the threshold of pain. It asks, what is the bare minimum you need to do to avoid being fired, divorced, or arrested? Most people live their entire lives hovering right above this line. They show up to work 5 minutes before the shift starts. They do exactly what is in the job description and nothing more. They eat just well enough to fit into their clothes. They are passing. They are safe. They are average. To lead yourself, you must reject the social standard entirely. You must declare it an insult to your potential. You must replace it with something far more demanding, far more rigid, and far more personal. You must adopt the silent standard, the gap between expectation and capacity. Imagine you are a high-performance sports car, capable of driving at 200 miles per hour, but you live in a city where the speed limit is 30. If you only drive 30, you are following the rules. You are a good citizen. No one will pull you over. No one will criticize you. But the engine will rot. The pistons will seize up from lack of use. You are a machine built for velocity, suffocating in a slow-motion world. This is the tragedy of the modern individual. You have a capacity for greatness, for deep focus, for immense physical strength, for profound creativity. But you are operating in a world that only requires you to send emails and sit in meetings. The silent standard is the recognition of this gap. It is the understanding that what the world asks of you is irrelevant. The only question that matters is, what are you capable of? If you can write 2,000 words a day, but your boss only asks for 500, writing 500 is a failure. Not a failure of employment, but a failure of self. If you can lift 300 pounds, but your daily life only requires you to lift a backpack, lifting the backpack is not strength, it is atrophy. The silent standard bridges the gap. It demands that you operate at the limit of your capacity, not the limit of your job description. The internal constitution. How do you codify this? You cannot just try harder. Vague ambition disappears when fatigue sets in. You need laws. Nations have constitutions, supreme documents that govern what can and cannot be done regardless of who is in charge. You need a personal constitution. This is not a vision board. This is not a list of goals. A goal is, I want to make $1 million. A constitution is, I do not steal, I do not cut corners, and I do not miss deadlines. One is a desire, the other is a law. You need to write this down. What are the non-negotiables of your life? Maybe your silent standard says, I never touch my phone for the first hour of the day. Maybe it says, I never leave dishes in the sink. Maybe it says, I always finish the workout, even if I have to lower the weight. These rules are silent. You do not post them on Instagram. You do not tell your spouse. You do not brag about them to your friends. They are between you and the audience of one. When you break a social rule, like running a red light, you might get a ticket. But if no cop sees you, you get away with it. When you break a silent standard, like hitting the snooze button when your constitution says, I rise immediately, there is no ticket, there is no cop. But you know. You have violated your own law, and a government that ignores its own laws eventually collapses. The philosophy of the craftsman. Let's look at the difference between a laborer and a craftsman. A laborer works for the paycheck. His standard is set by the boss. If the boss isn't looking, the laborer leans on his shovel. He asks, "Is this good enough to get paid?" A craftsman works for the product. His standard is set by the integrity of the work itself. If the boss isn't looking, the craftsman works harder because he is obsessed with the detail. He asks, "Is this good enough to bear my signature?" The silent standard turns you into a craftsman of your own life. Consider the back of a drawer in a high-end piece of antique furniture. No one sees it. It faces the wall. A laborer would leave the wood rough and unpolished. Who cares? But a master craftsman sands and varnishes the back of the drawer with the same care as the front. He does this because he isn't finishing the wood for the customer's eyes. He is finishing it because he is a finisher. In your life, how many backs of drawers are you leaving rough? The unorganized desktop files on your computer, the cluttered trunk of your car, the half-hearted apology you gave a friend just to end the argument. These are the hidden corners where your character is revealed. If you are sloppy in the dark, you are sloppy, period. The silent standard demands that you sand the wood that faces the wall. The metric of done. One of the greatest enemies of the silent standard is the modern definition of done. In the corporate world, done means I sent the email. It means the ball is in someone else's court. We love to pass the buck. We do the bare minimum to transfer responsibility, and then we wash our hands of it. The silent standard redefines done. Done does not mean I tried. Done does not mean I sent it. Done means the result has been achieved with absolute excellence. If you are leading yourself, you do not accept half measures. You do not submit a report with typos just because you know the editor will catch them. That is relying on someone else to clean up your mess. That is the behavior of a child. A leader anticipates the error and corrects it before it leaves their hands. A leader owns the outcome, not just the process. This level of ownership is rare. It is exhausting. It means you have to think 3 steps ahead. It means you have to care more than anyone else in the room. But this is the price of admission to the 1%. The world is filled with people who are busy. It is starving for people who are thorough. The zone of autonomy. When you live by the silent standard, something strange happens. You become unmanageable. Not unmanageable in a bad way, rebellious or difficult, but unmanageable because you no longer need management. Most employees need a manager to tell them what to do, when to do it, and to correct them when they mess up. They are dependent variables. But if your internal standard is higher than your boss's standard, your boss becomes irrelevant. They don't need to check your work because you've already checked it 3 times. They don't need to motivate you because your internal drive is hotter than any pep talk they could give. You attain sovereignty. You become the owner of your domain. This applies to relationships too. If you wait for your partner to tell you to take out the trash or plan the date night, you are being managed. You are a subordinate in your own relationship. But if your silent standard dictates that you are a provider and a caretaker, you do those things before you are asked. You lead the relationship. You create a dynamic of trust and respect because you are operating proactively, not reactively. The crucible of fatigue. It is easy to hold the silent standard when you are fresh, well-fed, and motivated. The test comes when the reserves are empty. The silent standard is most critical at 9 p.m. on a Friday. It is critical when you have the flu. It is critical when you have just suffered a major setback. Fatigue is the great negotiator. When you are tired, your brain will present compelling arguments to lower the bar. You've worked hard all week. You can skip the prep for Monday. You're emotional right now. It's okay to eat that comfort food. This is the moment of truth. The silent standard does not care about your fatigue. Gravity does not stop working because you were tired. The market does not stop moving because you were sad. The standard is an inanimate object. It is a cliff face. It is there, unmoving, waiting for you to climb it. When you hold the line despite your exhaustion, you forge a new level of endurance.
You prove to yourself that your feelings are not your masters. You prove that you can perform while in pain. And once you know that, once you truly know that you can execute while suffering, you become unstoppable. Chapter 4. The Shadow Work. We have all been infected by the montage myth. You know the scene. It is a staple of every inspirational movie you have ever watched. The hero hits rock bottom. The music swells. Then we see a fast-paced sequence of training. He wakes up at dawn. He lifts heavy iron. He studies late into the night. He fails, tries again, and improves. Sweat flies, calendars flip, and seasons change. In 3 minutes of screen time, the hero transforms from a novice into a master. It is exciting, it is emotional, and it is a lie. The montage skips the truth. It edits out the boredom. It cuts away the days where nothing happens. It removes the months of plateau where effort yields 0 visible results. It condenses 10 years of grinding into a single digestible song. Real life has no editor. Real life has no background music. Real life is long, slow, and often agonizingly quiet. Welcome to the shadow work. This chapter is not about the moment of victory. It is not about the breakthrough. It is about the years you must spend in the dark, shoveling coal into the furnace of your ambition, with no guarantee that the engine will ever start. Defining the shadows. Shadow work is the labor that falls outside the light of recognition. It is the unglamorous, repetitive, and often mind-numbing execution of fundamentals that actually build success. Writing the book is not shadow work. Writing the terrible first draft at 5 a.m. before your real job starts is shadow work. Winning the championship is not shadow work. Doing mobility drills for your ankles in a cold garage is shadow work. Closing the $1 million deal is not shadow work. Making 500 cold calls to people who hang up on you is shadow work. Most people love the idea of the result, but they despise the reality of the process. They want the physique, but they don't want the hunger. They want the wealth, but they don't want the risk. They want the mastery, but they don't want the monotony. To lead yourself, you must fall in love with the shadows. You must develop a perverse enjoyment of the things that make others quit. You must look at the boring, difficult, invisible tasks, not as chores to be rushed through, but as the very substance of your character. The boredom filter. The gatekeeper of greatness is not talent, it is not intelligence, it is boredom. Boredom is a filter. It is designed by nature to weed out the uncommitted. When you start a new project, a new business, a new diet, a new skill, you run on dopamine. Everything is fresh. You are excited. You buy the gear. You tell your friends. You are high on the novelty. But the novelty always fades. Usually it fades around week 3. The excitement is replaced by routine. The routine becomes repetition. The repetition becomes drudgery. You find yourself doing the same thing day after day with no applause and no immediate change in your circumstances. This is where the amateur quits. They say, "This isn't working." They say, "I've lost my passion." They say, "Maybe I should try something else." They interpret boredom as a signal that they are on the wrong path. The leader knows the opposite is true. Boredom is not a stop sign. It is a confirmation that you are doing the work. Elite performers endure levels of boredom that would drive a normal person insane. A concert pianist plays the same scale 10,000 times. An Olympic swimmer stares at the black line on the bottom of the pool for 6 hours a day for 4 years. They do not do this because it is fun. They do it because they understand that mastery is hidden behind the boredom. If you are bored, good. It means you have exhausted the novelty and are finally getting to the real work. The shadow work begins when the fun ends. The invisible root system. Consider the Chinese bamboo tree. When you plant the seed, you must water it and fertilize it every single day. If you miss a day, it dies. For the first year, you see nothing. The ground remains flat. For the second year, nothing. For the third and fourth years, still nothing. Imagine the psychological toll of that. You are pouring your resources, your time, and your hope into a patch of dirt that looks exactly the same as it did 4 years ago. Your neighbors are laughing at you. They are growing vegetables that harvest in weeks. They have results. You have dirt. But in the 5th year, the bamboo breaks the surface. And then, in a period of just 6 weeks, it grows 90 feet tall. Did it grow 90 feet in 6 weeks? No, it grew 90 feet in 5 years. For 5 years, it was doing shadow work. It was building a root system, a massive, complex subterranean network deep in the earth, strong enough to support the sudden explosive weight of a 90-foot structure. If it had grown too early without those roots, the first wind would have toppled it. You are likely in the root-building phase. You are putting in the work, and the world shows you nothing. You look at your bank account, unchanged. You look at the mirror, unchanged. You look at your skill level, marginally better. The temptation to quit during the root phase is overwhelming. You feel like you are wasting your life. You feel like a fool burying treasure in a hole. But you must trust the biology of success. Nothing grows above the surface until the roots are deep enough to sustain it. The shadow work is the digging. You are expanding your capacity to hold the success that is coming. If you were given the success you want right now, without the years of shadow work, it would crush you. You wouldn't have the discipline to keep the money, the character to handle the fame, or the wisdom to navigate the pressure. The delay is not a denial. It is a preparation. The volume of action shadow work. Shadow work is also a game of volume. We underestimate the sheer quantity of effort required to move the needle. We think that trying hard means making 3 phone calls. We think that working out means going to the gym 3 times a week. That is the volume of maintenance, not the volume of transformation. To break out of the orbit of mediocrity, you need escape velocity. Escape velocity requires massive, unreasonable amounts of fuel. Shadow work is about doing the unscalable things. It is sending the 100 personalized emails instead of the 1 mass blast. It is reading the technical manual from cover to cover while your competitors just read the summary. It is staying late to organize the files so that tomorrow runs 1% smoother. This volume is invisible. No one sees the extra reps. No one sees the revisions you threw in the trash, but the volume accumulates. Think of it like erosion. A single drop of water hitting a rock does nothing, but 1 billion drops of water over time cuts through the canyon. You are the water. The obstacle is the rock. Your only weapon is persistence. You cannot smash the rock with 1 blow. You must wear it down with the relentless, rhythmic dripping of your daily actions. Embracing the void. There is a spiritual component to shadow work. It requires you to make peace with the void. The void is the space where you are alone with your effort. It is the long drive to work. It is the late night at the desk. It is the early morning run. In the void, there are no distractions. There is only you and the task. Most people are terrified of the void. They fill it with podcasts, music, phone calls, and noise. They cannot stand the sound of their own breathing. But the leader learns to find sanctuary in the void. You must learn to crave the silence. In the silence, you can hear yourself think. In the silence, the work becomes a meditation. When you are deep in shadow work, you enter a state of flow. The world falls away. You stop worrying about the outcome and become one with the process. You are no longer trying to become a writer. You are simply writing. You are no longer trying to build a business. You are simply building. This is the state of wu-wei, effortless action. It does not mean the work is easy. It means the resistance to the work has vanished. You are not fighting yourself anymore. You have accepted the grind. You have accepted that this is what is required, so you might as well do it with total focus. The iceberg reality. You must also understand that your public life is just the tip of the iceberg. The tip, the part that sticks out of the water, is the 10% that people see. It is the awards, the launches, the celebrations. But the stability of the iceberg comes from the 90% that is submerged in the freezing dark water. If you neglect the shadow work, you are building a top-heavy iceberg. You are focusing on the image, the brand, and the hype, the 10%, while neglecting the skills, the systems, and the discipline, the 90%. Eventually, gravity wins. The top-heavy iceberg flips. We see this all the time. The influencer who burns out because they had no substance. The lottery winner who goes broke because they had no financial literacy. The executive who collapses because they had no health foundation. They tried to live entirely in the light without doing the work in the shadows. Do not envy the people who seem to rise too fast. They are unstable. Envy the mountain. The mountain doesn't rise fast. It sits on a foundation of tectonic pressure that has been building for eons. It is unmovable. The death of the ego. Shadow work kills the ego. The ego wants credit. The ego wants to be recognized. The ego wants to say, "Look at how hard I am working." But shadow work offers no credit. It is humble work. It is sweeping the floor. It is debugging the code. It is checking the references. It is the work of a servant. To lead yourself, you must be willing to serve your own vision. You must be willing to do the tasks that are beneath you. If you think you are too good to do the small things, you are too small to do the big things. The greatest leaders in history were men and women who understood the details. They did not sit in ivory towers. They were in the trenches. They knew the terrain because they had walked it. They knew the cost because they had paid it. When you do the shadow work, you earn the right to leave. You earn the respect of the person in the mirror. You know that you didn't inherit your success. You didn't get lucky. You didn't cheat. You dug it out of the ground with your own bare hands. The shadow contract. Here is your assignment. Identify the part of your work that you hate the most, the part that is boring, repetitive, and invisible, the part you usually procrastinate on or delegate. That is your shadow work. For the next week, attack that specific area with religious ferocity. If it is cold calling, make double the calls. If it is studying, read the driest, most dense textbook you can find. If it is cleaning, scrub the corners until they shine. Do not tell anyone you are doing it. Do not post about the grind. Just do it. Feel the boredom, feel the resistance, and then push through it. On the other side of that boredom is a strange power. You will realize that you are capable of doing things you don't feel like doing. You will realize that your will is stronger than your mood. That realization is the bamboo breaking the surface. Chapter 5. The Dictator Within. You have been told that you should be kind to yourself. You have been told to listen to your body, to honor your feelings, and to practice self-care. You have been raised in a culture that treats comfort as a human right and discomfort as a pathology. But look at the results. We have a generation of people who are masters of self-care, but strangers to self-command. They are kind to themselves to the point of atrophy. They listen to their feelings so intently that they are paralyzed by them. They treat every momentary dip in motivation as a sign of burnout. If you want to lead yourself, you do not need more kindness. You do not need a democracy inside your head where every fleeting emotion gets a vote. You need a dictator, the failed democracy of the mind. Imagine a ship sailing through a violent storm. Waves are crashing over the deck. The wind is tearing at the sails. The ship is taking on water. Now, imagine the captain calls a meeting. He gathers the crew, the terrified sailors, the seasick cook, the exhausted engineer, and he asks them to vote on what to do next. All in favor of turning back? Hands go up. All in favor of lowering the sails? Hands go up. All in favor of abandoning ship? Hands go up. If that ship is run as a democracy, it will sink. In a crisis, you do not need consensus. You need command. You need a captain who screams orders over the roar of the wind, who ignores the fear of the crew, and who steers the ship directly into the wave because he knows that is the only way to survive. Your life is that ship.
The storm is the chaos of the world, and the crew are your emotions. Your emotions are terrified sailors. Fear screams, "Stop!" Laziness screams, "Rest!" Anxiety screams, "Hide!" If you let your emotions vote on your actions, you will never leave the harbor. You will live a life of safety, smallness, and regret. Most people operate their minds as a failed democracy. They wake up in the morning and ask themselves a fatal question: how do I feel? They check in with the crew. I feel tired, says the body. I feel overwhelmed, says the anxiety. I feel like scrolling, says the dopamine addiction. So the democracy votes. The result? You hit snooze, you skip the gym, you procrastinate. To lead yourself, you must declare martial law inside your own mind. You must suspend the democracy. You must install a benevolent dictator, a version of you that operates from the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic and planning, and ruthlessly overrides the limbic system, the seat of emotion and impulse. The nature of the dictator. When I say dictator, I do not mean a tyrant who rules with cruelty. I mean a ruler who rules with absolute authority. The dictator within is the part of you that has the vision. It knows what you want in 5 years. It knows that the pain of discipline is the price of the prize. It is the adult in the room. The dictator does not ask. The dictator orders. When the alarm goes off at 5 a.m., the democracy says, "It's cold, just 10 more minutes." The dictator says, "Get up." When the workout gets hard, the democracy says, "This hurts, let's stop." The dictator says, "3 more reps." When the distraction beckons, the democracy says, "Just 1 peek." The dictator says, "Eyes forward." This shift in internal governance is the secret of the elite. They do not have better feelings than you. They feel the same cold, the same fear, and the same lethargy. The difference is that they do not negotiate with those feelings. They have a mechanism of override. Abuse versus command. There is a critical distinction you must understand. Establishing a dictator within is not the same as being abusive to yourself. Many people confuse discipline with self-hatred. They try to motivate themselves with insults. They look in the mirror and say, "You're fat, you're lazy, you're a loser." They scream at themselves internally, hoping that shame will drive action. This is a mistake. This is not a dictator, this is a bully. Abusive self-talk triggers a stress response. It spikes cortisol. It creates anxiety. Eventually, you will rebel against the bully. You will quit just to spite the voice in your head. Shame is a dirty fuel. It burns hot, but it destroys the engine. Command-driven self-talk is different. It is not emotional. It is clinical. It is directive. Think of a calm, professional air traffic controller guiding a plane through a storm. He doesn't scream at the pilot, "You idiot, turn left." He says, "Turn left, heading 240, maintain altitude." Think of a surgeon in the ER. When things go wrong, she doesn't yell, "We're all gonna die." She says, "Scalpel, clamp, suction." The dictator speaks in short, imperative sentences. It focuses on the immediate physical action required. It cuts through the emotional noise with clarity. Abuse: "Why are you so stupid? You haven't written anything in an hour." Command: "Sit down." Abuse: "You're weak. Look at you shaking." Command: "Breathe. Grip the bar. Lift." The dictator does not judge your worth. It directs your energy. It removes the drama. It treats you like a soldier who needs instructions, not a sinner who needs punishment. The policy of non-negotiation. The moment you start debating with yourself, you have already lost. Negotiation implies that there are 2 valid sides. It implies that staying in bed is a legitimate counteroffer to getting up. It is not. The dictator adheres to a strict policy of non-negotiation. Once a decision is made by the logical brain, usually the night before, it is law. When the time for execution comes, the debate floor is closed.
If you decide on Sunday that you will run on Monday morning, then on Monday morning there is no discussion. The decision was made yesterday. Today is just for execution. You are not allowed to relitigate the case just because you were tired. This requires you to separate the planner from the doer. The planner is the CEO, the doer is the employee. The CEO sets the strategy. The CEO decides the hours. The doer simply punches the clock. When you wake up, you are the doer. You are not authorized to change the CEO's plan. If you, as the doer, decide to skip the run, you are guilty of insubordination. This mental framework creates a tremendous amount of freedom. It frees you from decision fatigue. You don't have to decide every morning whether to work out. The decision is already made. You just have to obey. There is peace in obedience to a higher standard. The override mechanism. How do you practically implement this? You use the override. The override is a physical intervention that breaks the loop of hesitation. Psychologists know that there is a gap between having a thought, I should get up, and taking an action, getting up. In that gap, hesitation lives. In that gap, your brain invents excuses. The longer the gap stays open, the more likely you are to do nothing. The dictator closes the gap instantly. You must develop a trigger, a physical switch. Some use a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. When you hit go, you move your body before your brain can object. You treat go like a starter pistol. Some use a physical jolt. They splash cold water on their face. They drop to the floor and do 5 push-ups. They stand up aggressively. The key is to move the body first. The mind follows the body. We think we need to feel ready to act, but in reality, acting makes us feel ready. When you feel the resistance rising, that sticky, heavy glue of procrastination, do not try to think your way out of it. You cannot outthink a feeling. You must outact it. The dictator says, move, and you move. You jerk your body into motion. You put on the shoes. You open the laptop. You break the static friction. Once you are moving, the resistance fades. The hardest part is always the start. The override gets you past the start. Emotional detachment. To sustain the rule of the dictator, you must practice emotional detachment. You must learn to view your emotions as weather patterns. You are the mountain. The emotions are the clouds passing around the mountain. Sometimes the clouds are dark and stormy, anger, fear. Sometimes they are light and fluffy, joy, excitement. Sometimes it is thick fog, confusion, depression. But the mountain does not move because of the clouds. The mountain does not say, oh no, it's raining, I guess I'll crumble today. The mountain stands. You must learn to observe your feelings without identifying with them. Instead of saying, I am anxious, say, I am experiencing anxiety. Instead of saying, I am tired, say, my body is signaling fatigue. This linguistic shift creates distance. It allows you to look at the emotion as a piece of data rather than a command. I am experiencing anxiety. Okay, noted. The dictator acknowledges the data. Thank you for the report, anxiety. We are proceeding with the speech anyway. My body is signaling fatigue. Okay, noted. Thank you, body. We will rest at 10 p.m. Right now, we work. This is not suppression. Suppression is pushing feelings down and pretending they don't exist. That is dangerous. Detachment is letting them exist, but refusing to let them drive the car. You can be terrified and brave at the same time. You can be exhausted and productive at the same time. The feeling and the action are independent variables. The revolt of the weak self. Be warned, when you install the dictator, the weak part of you will revolt. Your lower self, the part that craves dopamine, sugar, and safety, will panic. It is used to getting its way. It is like a spoiled child that has been given candy every time it cried. Now suddenly the candy has stopped. It will throw a tantrum. It will spike your anxiety. It will create psychosomatic pain. My head hurts, maybe I shouldn't work. It will try to seduce you with logic. You've been working so hard, you deserve a break. Just one day won't hurt. This is the revolt. You must expect this. When the internal screaming starts, do not be alarmed. Smile. It means the dictator is in power. It means the discipline is working. If you were not making progress, the resistance wouldn't be fighting you so hard. The intensity of the revolt is a measure of the significance of the change. Hold the line. Do not give an inch. If you give in to the tantrum, you teach the child that screaming works. You must teach the child that screaming is futile. After a few days or weeks of consistent dictatorship, the lower self will submit. It will realize that you are no longer negotiable. The tantrums will stop. The resistance will quiet down. The habit will form. And then a strange peace will settle over you. This is the peace of self-mastery, the language of the king. Finally, you must rewrite your internal script. You must speak the language of the king. Weak people speak in questions and subjunctive moods. I should probably. I'll try to. Hopefully I can. What if I fail? The dictator speaks in declarations. I will. I am. It is done. Stop saying, I have to go to the gym. Have to implies slavery. It implies you are being forced by an outside power. Say, I am going to the gym. It is a statement of fact. It is a choice. Stop saying, I'll try to finish this today. Try is a permission slip for failure. Say, I will finish this today. Your words are codes that program your nervous system. If you speak with uncertainty, you will act with hesitation. If you speak with authority, you will act with power. Catch yourself. Every time a weak phrase slips into your mind, delete it and rewrite it. Change, I hope I can handle this, to I will handle this. Change, this is too hard, to this is necessary. The solitude of command. Leading yourself is a lonely business. The dictator within has no friends. The dictator does not seek validation. The dictator seeks only execution. There will be days when you hate the dictator. You will want to overthrow him. You will want to go back to the soft, easy life of the democracy. You will miss the comfort of your excuses. But remember why you installed him. You installed him because the democracy was leading you off a cliff. You installed him because you wanted more than mediocrity. The dictator is the guardian of your potential. He is the only one strong enough to protect your future from your present impulses. He is the one who ensures that when you reach the end of your life, you are not filled with the bitterness of what could have been. Trust the dictator. Obey the command. The freedom you seek is not the freedom from discipline. It is the freedom through discipline. Chapter 6. Resurrecting in Private. There is a specific type of shame that eats a man alive. It is not the shame of being fired. It is not the shame of a public breakup. It is not the shame of losing a game while the crowd watches. Those are public failures. In a public failure, there is a mechanism for release. People see you fall. They offer pity. They offer encouragement. Get back up, they say. You'll get 'em next time. The external world acknowledges the event, and in that acknowledgement there is a form of catharsis. But what happens when you fail in the dark? What happens when you swore to yourself you wouldn't drink tonight, but you are standing in your kitchen at 11 p.m., alone, pouring the second glass? What happens when you promised to wake up early to build your business, but you slept until noon, and no one knew you had a plan in the first place? What happens when you binge-watch pornography after swearing you were done, and the only witness is the incognito tab on your browser? This is the silent crash. There is no audience to offer sympathy. There is no one to hold you accountable. There is only you and the evidence of your own weakness. The silence amplifies the failure. You look in the mirror and you do not just see a mistake, you see a fraud. You think, this is who I really am. All that discipline was just a mask. This broken, weak thing is the reality. And then, usually, you spiral. Leading yourself is not about being perfect. That is a childish fantasy. Leading yourself is about what you do in the 60 seconds after you fall face first into the mud, when no one is there to help you up. This chapter is about the art of the private resurrection, the mathematics of the spiral. We need to discuss the what the hell effect. This is a real psychological phenomenon. It describes the moment a minor slip-up triggers a total collapse. You were on a strict diet. You eat one cookie. It's a small failure, maybe 200 calories. In the grand scheme of your life, it is statistically irrelevant. But your brain says, well, you blew it. The streak is over. You failed. So, what the hell? Might as well eat the whole box. You turn a 200-calorie mistake into a 2,000-calorie disaster. You miss one workout on Tuesday. Instead of going on Wednesday, you say, I messed up the week. I'll start fresh on Monday. You turn a one-day missed opportunity into a 7-day hiatus. This is the spiral. The spiral happens because you are judging yourself based on a streak. You think that discipline is a pristine, unbroken chain. The moment a link breaks, you believe the chain is worthless, so you throw it away. This is binary thinking. It is either perfect or zero. If you want to survive the lonely path of self-leadership, you must destroy binary thinking. You are not a robot. You are a biological organism operating in a chaotic environment. You will slip. You will have moments of weakness. You will have days where the shadow self wins. The leader does not prevent every fall. The leader prevents the drift. The difference between an elite performer and an amateur is not that the elite performer never eats the cookie. It is that the elite performer eats the cookie, acknowledges the error, and immediately returns to the protocol. They do not eat the second cookie. They do not wait for Monday. They resurrect instantly. The refractory period. In biology, the refractory period is the recovery time required after a nerve fires before it can fire again. We can apply this to your will. When you fail, there is a refractory period, a lag time where you wallow in guilt, shame, and inaction before you get back on track. For the average person, the refractory period is long. They fail on Friday, they feel guilty all weekend, they start again on Monday. Refractory period, 3 days. For the weak person, it is weeks or months. I fell off the wagon in December, I'll restart in January. For the leader, the goal is to shorten the refractory period to 0. You missed the morning alarm? The amateur ruins the whole day. The leader says, I missed the morning, I will work late tonight. Reset, go. Refractory period, 5 minutes. You lost your temper and yelled at your kids? The amateur beats themselves up for hours, withdrawing into a shell of shame. The leader apologizes, fixes the energy in the room, and returns to being a calm parent. Refractory period, 2 minutes. The game is not don't fail. The game is fail fast. Speed is your savior. The longer you sit in the wreckage of your failure, the harder the concrete sets. Shame solidifies over time. If you stay down, you start to identify with the ground. You start to think, I am a person who stays down. You must spring back up with a violence that surprises even you. You must make the recovery so fast that the failure barely registers on the timeline of your life. The autopsy without blame. How do you do this? You cannot just ignore the failure. If you ignore it, you will repeat it. You need to analyze it, but you must strip the analysis of emotion. You need to perform a clinical autopsy. When a plane crashes, the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, investigators do not stand around the wreckage screaming, "What an idiot pilot! How could he be so stupid?" That would be useless. They look at the black box. They look at the data. Was it a mechanical failure? Was it weather? Was it pilot error? They find the root cause, they fix the protocol, and they move on. When you fail in private, you must be the investigator, not the weeping mourner. You drank too much? Okay, stop calling yourself a loser. Look at the black box. Time, 8 p.m. Location, living room couch. Trigger, you were tired, hungry, and bored. You had alcohol in the house. Analysis, you did not fail because you are a bad person. You failed because you were tired, hungry, and had easy access to the vice. Solution, do not keep alcohol in the house. When you were tired and hungry, eat a steak, not a drink. See the difference? Shame says, I am broken. Strategy says, the system was flawed. Fix the system. When you resurrect in private, you do not ask for forgiveness, you ask for data. You extract the lesson from the pain, and then you discard the pain. The pain is just the packaging, the lesson is the product. Once you have the product, throw the packaging away. The clean slate protocol. You need a ritual to signify the resurrection. When you are in a spiral, when you have wasted half the day on social media or eaten the junk food, you feel dirty. Your mental state is cluttered with the residue of failure. You feel sluggish and foggy. You need to physically break the state. You cannot think your way out of a slump. You have to shock your body out of it. Develop a clean slate protocol. This is a physical action that signals to your brain, the past is dead, the clock has reset. We begin again now. Examples of a clean slate protocol. The cold reset. Go to the bathroom, splash freezing cold water on your face 3 times. Dry off. Look in the mirror. Say, reset. Walk out. The previous hours no longer exist. The environment change. If you have been procrastinating at your desk for 3 hours, get up. Leave the room. Go outside. Walk around the block. Do not take your phone. When you sit back down, it is a new day. The physical jolt. Drop and do 20 push-ups until your blood is pumping. The physical exertion burns off the cortisol of the stress and resets your dopamine. It sounds simple, almost childish, but it works. You are using physiology to hack psychology. You are drawing a line in the sand. Most people let the bad morning bleed into a bad afternoon and eventually a bad life. The clean slate protocol builds a firewall. It contains the fire. It says, okay, I lost the morning. The morning is gone. I will not lose the afternoon. You can have a bad 15 minutes. You are not allowed to have a bad 24 hours. The secret victory. There is a hidden power in recovering when no one is watching. When you fail publicly and get back up, you get applause. Look how resilient he is. It feeds the ego. But when you fail in private, when you are humiliated in your own eyes, and you choose to stand back up, wipe the dust off, and keep marching without telling a soul, that feeds the soul. That is high-octane fuel for your self-respect. You know that you could have stayed down. You know that no one would have blamed you because no one knew. You could have taken the rest of the day off, but you didn't. You chose the hard path when the easy path was wide open and completely secret. Every time you resurrect in private, you are depositing a massive check into your account of confidence. You are proving to the audience of one that you are unkillable. You are proving that your discipline is not a performance for others, it is a covenant with yourself. The never twice rule. To solidify this, adopt the never twice rule. I will allow myself to slip. I am human. I might miss a workout. I might eat a bad meal. I might lose my focus. But I will never do it twice in a row. Missing 1 day is an accident. Missing 2 days is the beginning of a new habit. The never twice rule is your safety net. It catches you before you hit terminal velocity. If you messed up yesterday, today is not a normal day. Today is a code red day. Today, your only mission, the only thing that matters in the universe, is to get back on the path. You don't have to be perfect today. You just have to be present. You just have to cast the deciding vote against the spiral. The lie of the wagon. Finally, let's dismantle the metaphor of falling off the wagon. The wagon implies that you are a passenger. It implies that you are riding on something, and if you fall off, the wagon keeps moving without you. You are left behind in the dust, watching your progress roll away. This is a lie. There is no wagon. You are not a passenger. You are the road. You are the walker. You are the journey itself. You cannot fall off your own life. You are always on the path, because you are the path. Sometimes the path gets muddy. Sometimes the path goes backwards for a mile. Sometimes you sit down on the path and cry, but you are never off it. This shift in perspective is crucial. Falling off implies a state of disconnection, a binary on-off status. It makes you feel like an outcast from your own success. But if you realize that the stumble is part of the walk, you stop panicking. You stumbled? Okay, keep walking. You fell? Okay, stand up. Keep walking. You don't need to restart. You don't need to go back to day 1. You are on day 1452 of your life. Keep going. The miles you walked before you fell still count. They didn't disappear. You still have that strength. You still have that knowledge. Stop resetting the counter. Stop waiting for a clean start. Start with the mud on your face. Start with the guilt in your gut. Start while you feel like a failure. Just start. The quiet comeback. Real comebacks don't have soundtracks. When you resurrect in private, it is quiet. It is just the sound of a book opening. It is the sound of a shoe hitting the pavement. It is the sound of a deep breath and a return to focus. It is boring. It is unsexy, and it is the most heroic thing you will ever do. The world belongs to the men and women who can survive their own darkness. It belongs to those who can look at their own broken reflection, refuse to look away, and then, with trembling hands, begin to put the pieces back together. Do not wait for the feeling of redemption. Redemption is a lagging indicator. It comes after the work is done. Do the work while you feel like a fraud, and eventually the feeling of fraudulence will be replaced by the ironclad certainty of a man who knows he can fall and rise, fall and rise, fall and rise forever. Chapter 7. The Architecture of Will. There is a lie you tell yourself every time you fail. You tell yourself, I just wasn't strong enough. You believe that discipline is a character trait, like height or eye color. You believe that some people are born with an iron will and you were born with a spine made of chalk. You look at the elite performers, the writers who write every day, the athletes who never miss a meal prep, the CEOs who focus for 12 hours, and you think they possess some magical internal fuel source that you lack. You are wrong. They are not stronger than you. They are smarter than you. They do not rely on willpower, they rely on architecture. Willpower is the most unreliable resource in the human mind. It is a battery that starts draining the moment you wake up. Every decision you make, what to wear, what to eat, which email to answer, whether to hold back a snarky comment, costs a unit of energy. By 4 p.m., your battery is dead. If you are relying on willpower to get you through the evening, you will fail. You will eat the pizza. You will skip the gym. You will watch the TV. Not because you are weak, but because you are empty. Leading yourself is not about increasing the size of your battery. It is about designing a life where you don't need the battery. The path of least resistance. Human beings are like water. We follow the path of least resistance. If the junk food is on the counter, you will eat it. If the phone is next to your bed, you will scroll it. If the remote control is on the coffee table, you will watch TV. You are genetically wired to conserve energy. Your brain is always looking for the easiest option. The problem is that in the modern world, the easiest option is almost always the destructive one. The path of least resistance leads directly to obesity, distraction, and mediocrity. Most people try to fight this current. They try to swim upstream. They leave the junk food on the counter but tell themselves, I will just be strong. This is a losing battle. You might win on Monday and Tuesday, but eventually, gravity wins. The architect does not fight the current. The architect redirects the river. If you want to lead yourself when no one is watching, you must build an environment where the right choice is the easy choice and the wrong choice is the hard choice. You must manipulate the physics of your own life, the dynamics of friction. The primary tool of the architect is friction. Friction is the effort required to perform an action. Your job is to aggressively increase friction for bad habits and aggressively decrease friction for good habits. Let's look at the phone addiction. Most people sleep with their phone on the nightstand. The friction to check it is zero. You just reach out your hand. Therefore, you check it. To fix this, you don't need digital detox willpower. You need friction. Put the phone in the kitchen to charge overnight. Now, to check it, you have to get out of the warm covers, walk across the cold floor, and go to another room. The friction is high. The laziness that usually hurts you now helps you. You were too lazy to get the phone, so you sleep. You win. Let's look at the morning workout. The amateur wakes up and has to find his socks, find his shorts, find his headphones, and fill his water bottle. That is high friction. Every missing item is an excuse to quit. The architect lays out the clothes the night before. The shoes are by the door. The water bottle is filled. The playlist is selected. The friction is near zero. You can practically fall into your workout gear. You must audit your environment. Look at every bad habit you have. How can you add 3 steps between you and the vice? Unplug the TV and put the remote in a drawer. Now you have to plug it in to watch. Delete the social media apps from your phone. Now you have to log in via a browser to check. Don't buy the cookies. Now you have to drive to the store to eat them. Conversely, look at every good habit. How can you remove 3 steps? Keep a book on your pillow. Keep the guitar on a stand, not in a case. Keep the healthy food washed and chopped in clear containers at eye level in the fridge. Do not trust your future self to make the right choice. Future you will be tired and lazy. Rig the game so that future you has no choice but to succeed. The visual command center. Your environment is constantly speaking to you. The question is, what is it saying? Look around your room right now. A messy desk says your life is chaotic, you are overwhelmed. A dirty kitchen says you don't respect your body. A pile of unread books says you are a procrastinator. These visual cues trigger subconscious scripts. They drain your energy before you even start working. You need to sanitize your visual field. This is not about feng shui, this is about cognitive load. When you walk into a luxury hotel room, why do you feel calm? Because there is no noise. The surfaces are clear. Everything has a place. The environment signals rest, peace, order. When you walk into a chaotic warehouse, you feel alert and stressed. You must treat your workspace and your living space as a command center. Clear the surfaces, hide the cables, remove everything that does not serve your immediate mission. When you sit down to work, there should be nothing in your field of vision except the work. No post-it notes reminding you of other tasks, no phone blinking, no clutter. When the eye has nowhere else to go, the mind settles on the task. This is why empty room discipline is easier in an actual empty room. If you are trying to write a masterpiece in a room filled with toys, laundry, and gadgets, you are fighting a war on 2 fronts, the difficulty of the writing and the distraction of the room. Eliminate the second front. The digital fortress. The greatest enemy of your will is in your pocket. Your phone is not a tool. It is a slot machine. It is designed by the smartest PhDs in the world to hijack your dopamine receptors. It is engineered to fragment your attention. If you are trying to lead yourself while leaving your notifications on, you are a fool. You are trying to meditate in the middle of a carnival. You must build a digital fortress. Level 1, the notification nuke. Turn off all non-human notifications. You need to know if your mother calls. You do not need to know that a stranger liked your photo. You do not need to know that breaking news happened. You do not need to know that an app has a sale. Every ding is an interruption cost. It takes 23 minutes to regain deep focus after an interruption. If your phone buzzes every 10 minutes, you are mathematically incapable of deep work. Level 2. The gray world. Turn your phone to grayscale, black and white mode. Color is a reward signal. Those bright red badges and colorful icons are candy for your brain. When you strip the color, the phone becomes a tool again. It becomes boring. You'll find yourself unlocking it, realizing it looks dead, and putting it back in your pocket. Level 3. The separation of church and state. Do not work on the same device you play on. If you use your laptop for Netflix, YouTube, and gaming, your brain associates that physical object with leisure. When you try to work on it, you are fighting that association. If possible, have a work device and a play device. If you can't afford two devices, create a work user profile on your computer. On this profile, there are no games, no social media bookmarks, and a boring wallpaper. When you log into that profile, you are at work. The power of defaults architecture. Architecture is about setting defaults. In computer programming, a default is what happens when the user does nothing. What is the default state of your life? If you do nothing, what happens? For most people, the default meal is fast food. The default evening is Netflix. The default spending is impulsive. You must change the defaults. Automate your finances so that savings are deducted before you see the money. Default saving. Meal prep on Sunday so that the easiest meal to grab is a healthy one. Block distraction websites on your router during work hours. When you set the default to success, you have to actively work to fail. You have to go out of your way to be lazy. That is a powerful position to be in. The social architecture. We often forget that people are part of our environment. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is a cliché because it is true, but it goes deeper. You are the average of the expectations of the people around you. If you hang out with people who complain, who drink every weekend, and who have no ambition, you are fighting their gravity. To be disciplined in that group, you have to be the weirdo. You have to be the outcast. That is exhausting. But if you place yourself in a room of high performers, people who wake up early, who read, who are building empires, the gravity shifts. In that room, laziness makes you the weirdo. Mediocrity makes you the outcast. To fit in, you have to level up. This is social architecture. You must curate your circle with the same ruthlessness that you curate your desk. If you cannot find these people in real life yet, find them digitally. Curate your feed. Unfollow the drama. Follow the builders. Listen to podcasts that challenge you. Read biographies of great men and women. Fill your ears with the voices of the silent standard until they drown out the voices of the average. The sanctuary of deep work. You need a physical space that is sacred. It doesn't have to be a whole office. It can be a specific chair. It can be a specific corner of the library. But it must be a space where only work happens. Never scroll social media in your deep work chair. Never eat in your deep work chair. Never sleep in your deep work chair. This builds a spatial anchor. The moment your body enters that space, your brain switches modes. It knows we are here to war. If you work from bed, you are destroying this anchor. You are confusing your brain. It doesn't know if it should be alert or asleep, so it gives you a mixture of both. Anxious insomnia. Protect your sanctuary. When you are in it, you are unreachable. Close the door, put on noise-canceling headphones. This is the cockpit. You are flying the plane. No passengers allowed. The checkpoint system. Finally, a good architect builds inspection points. You cannot rely on a system forever without maintenance. Entropy exists. Order degrades into chaos over time. Your desk will get messy. Your phone habits will creep back. You need a Sunday reset. Every Sunday, take 1 hour to restore the architecture. Clean the physical space, clear the digital desktop, prep the food, review the calendar. This is not a chore. This is sharpening the axe. If you spend 1 hour sharpening the axe on Sunday, you will chop down the tree in 10 minutes on Monday. If you don't, you will spend all week hacking away with a dull blade, exhausting yourself for little result. The end of trying. When you build the architecture correctly, you stop trying so hard. You stop waking up and having a debate with yourself. You just follow the cues. The clothes are there, you put them on. The phone is gone, you don't check it.
The food is ready. You eat it. You become a product of your system. This is the ultimate hack for leading yourself. You admit that you are human. You admit that you are easily distracted. You admit that your willpower is weak. And then you outsmart yourself. You build a cage that forces you to be free. Chapter 8. Mastering the Void. The greatest danger to your potential is not stress. It is not being too busy. It is not the overwhelming pressure of a deadline. The greatest danger is the opposite. It is the silence. It is the empty calendar. It is the unstructured Saturday morning. It is the freedom you think you want. We call this the void. Most people spend their lives complaining about the grind. They hate the alarm clock. They hate the boss breathing down their neck. They hate the rush hour traffic. They fantasize about a life where they have absolutely nothing to do, where they can wake up whenever they want, work on whatever they want, and answer to no one. But when they finally get a taste of that freedom, perhaps during a vacation, a period of unemployment, or early retirement, they do not flourish. They disintegrate. Without the external structure of a job, a school, or a parent, most human beings dissolve into a puddle of lethargy. They sleep in until noon, they wander aimlessly around the house, they binge-watch television for 10 hours. They feel a strange, creeping depression. Why? Because they are powered by external pressure. They are like sailboats that only move when the wind blows from the outside. When the wind dies, they drift. To lead yourself, you must learn to master the void. You must learn to generate your own gravity. You must learn to be productive not because a boss is watching, but because you are burning with an internal intensity that does not require a deadline to ignite. The horror of absolute freedom. Structure is a cage, but it is also a support system. When you remove the cage, you realize that you do not have a spine. The void is terrifying because it forces you to confront your own lack of drive. When you have 8 hours of free time and you accomplish nothing, you can no longer blame the system. You can no longer blame distractions. You are forced to admit that given total freedom, you chose to do nothing. This is why the weekend trap exists. You work hard Monday through Friday because you have to. Then Saturday comes, you have big plans. You are going to write that business plan, clean the garage, and go for a long run. But you wake up without an alarm. You have coffee, you scroll on your phone. I'll start at 10, you say. Then it's noon, then it's 3 p.m. Suddenly the sun is setting. You have done nothing. You feel worse than you did on Monday. This is Sunday neurosis, the anxiety that comes from the realization that you wasted your liberty. Mastering the void means treating your free time with more respect than your sold time. When you are at work, you sell your time to your employer. You respect that time because they are paying you. When you are off the clock, that time belongs to you. It is your life. Why do you treat the time you sold as valuable and the time you own as worthless? You must stop viewing free time as a time to kill. You are killing your life. You must view the void as a blank canvas that demands a masterpiece, not a trash can to throw your hours into. The law of gas expansion. There is a law in productivity known as Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If you give yourself 30 days to write a chapter, it will take you 30 days. It will be a painful, slow, procrastinated 30 days.
You will tweak sentences, you will do research, you will worry. If you give yourself 3 hours to write the same chapter, it will take 3 hours, and the quality will likely be higher because the pressure forces you to focus on the essential. The void is dangerous because it offers infinite time. When you have all day to do the laundry takes all day. When you have all weekend to work on your project, the project never gets done. The gas expands to fill the container. If the container is the size of a warehouse, the gas spreads out and loses all pressure. If you compress the gas into a small cylinder, it becomes explosive. It becomes power. To master the void, you must create artificial compression. You must lie to yourself about the time available. You must look at a Saturday that is completely open and say, I only have from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. to finish this. After 11 a.m., the opportunity is gone. You must impose a deadline where none exists. This is difficult. Your brain knows it is a fake deadline. It knows nothing bad will happen if you miss it. This is where the dictator within, from Chapter 5, must step in. The dictator enforces the artificial deadline. The dictator says, if it is not done by 11 a.m., we do not eat lunch until 2 p.m. You must create stakes. Without stakes, there is no game. And if there is no game, you will not play with intensity. Autonomic productivity. Your body has 2 nervous systems, the somatic, voluntary, and the autonomic, involuntary. You have to think to move your arm, somatic. You do not have to think to beat your heart, autonomic. Most people have somatic productivity. They have to consciously force every ounce of work. It is a manual effort. Okay, now I will work. It is exhausting. The goal is autonomic productivity. This is a state where the work happens automatically, rhythmically, and without constant negotiation. How do you achieve this in the void? Rhythm. The void has no shape, so you must build a skeleton for it. You need a daily rhythm that exists regardless of your employment status, the day of the week, or the weather. Great writers don't write when they are inspired. They write every morning at 7 a.m. It is a biological rhythm, like hunger. If they don't write at 7 a.m., they feel sick. They feel off. You need to establish the anchor points. Anchor 1, wake-up time, fixed. Anchor 2, the deep work block, fixed. Anchor 3, physical training, fixed. These anchors remain the same on Sunday as they do on Monday. They remain the same whether you are employed or unemployed. They are the heartbeat of your autonomic productivity. When you have these anchors, the void is no longer an endless, scary ocean. It is a mapped territory. You know that no matter what happens in the world, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., you are building. The theory of the zero option. When you are staring into the abyss of a free afternoon, distractions are infinitely appealing. The brain is terrified of boredom, so it grabs the nearest shiny object. To conquer this, use the zero option method. This is a technique used by prolific authors. When they sit down to write, they give themselves permission to do one of 2 things. Write. Do absolutely nothing. They are not allowed to check email. They are not allowed to read a book. They are not allowed to clean the desk. They can write, or they can sit and stare at the wall. Staring at a wall is boring. It is painfully understimulating. After about 10 minutes of staring at the wall, writing becomes the most exciting option available. The brain, desperate for stimulation, chooses the work. You can apply this to anything. I can build this spreadsheet, or I can sit in this chair with the monitor off. I can do the workout, or I can stand in the garage in silence. Eliminate the third option. The third option is the distraction. The third option is the phone, the snack, the busy work. When you remove the escape hatch, you are forced to face the work. You make the work the path of least resistance compared to the torture of doing nothing, the waiting mode trap. One of the most insidious ways the void destroys you is through waiting mode. You have an appointment at 4 p.m. It is currently 11 a.m. A logical person would say, I have 5 hours. I can get a lot done. But the anxious, undisciplined mind enters waiting mode. You feel like you can't start anything deep because you might be interrupted, even though the interruption is 5 hours away. You putter around, you do low-value tasks, you fundamentally waste 5 hours because of a future event. This is a failure of compartmentalization. You must learn to slice the void into distinct blocks. You must live in day-tight compartments. If you have 20 minutes, you have 20 minutes. That is enough time to read 10 pages. It is enough time to send 3 important emails. It is enough time to do a set of push-ups. Stop waiting for large chunks of time. They rarely exist. The void is made of fragments. Mastery is the ability to utilize the fragments. If you are waiting for a perfect, uninterrupted 4-hour block to start your dream project, you will wait forever. The perfect block never comes. You must build your castle using the bricks of 15-minute intervals. The generator versus the battery. There are 2 types of people, batteries and generators. A battery stores energy. It needs to be charged by something outside of itself. It needs a motivational video. It needs a pep talk. It needs a deadline. When the external charge is gone, the battery dies. A generator creates energy. It takes the fuel of raw reality and spins it into power. It does not need to be plugged in. It is the source. When you are in the void, you find out which one you are. If you stop moving the moment the pressure is off, you are a battery. You are dependent. To become a generator, you must find a source of fuel that is internal. That fuel is usually purpose or anger or curiosity. Curiosity, I need to see if I can solve this puzzle. Anger, I refuse to remain in this situation any longer. Purpose, I have a duty to fulfill this potential. These fuels burn in the void. They don't need a boss. They don't need a paycheck. Look at the most successful people in history. Did Elon Musk have a boss telling him to go to Mars? Did Michelangelo have a supervisor checking his hours on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel? No. They were generators. The pressure came from inside the house. The fire was internal. They were running away from their own potential for mediocrity, not running toward a quarterly bonus. Respecting the white space. Mastering the void does not mean filling every second with grinding work. That is a recipe for burnout. It means filling every second with intention. There is a difference between drifting and recovering. Drifting is mindless scrolling. It is staring at the TV without watching it. It leaves you feeling drained and guilty. Recovering is active. It is sleeping. It is reading fiction. It is walking in nature. It leaves you feeling surcharged. When a leader enters the void to rest, they rest aggressively. They disconnect completely. They do not check email just in case. They respect the recovery phase because they know it is necessary for the next sprint. The amateur mixes work and play. They check email while watching a movie. They feel guilty about not working while they are trying to relax, so they do neither well. They ruin the work with distraction, and they ruin the relaxation with guilt. Separate the states. When you work, work. Be total. When you rest, rest. Be total. Do not linger in the gray zone. The gray zone is where the void eats your soul. The Sunday strategy. The battle for the void is won or lost on Sunday night. If you wake up on Monday morning and have to decide what to do, it is too late. The decision fatigue will set in, the void will open its mouth, and you will fall in. You must script the week before the week begins. You must look at the white space on your calendar and color it in. Tuesday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. is blank. I will assign client outreach to this block. Wednesday morning is open. I will assign deep writing to this block. You are preloading the decisions. You are turning the void into a structure. When you arrive at Tuesday at 2 p.m., you don't have to think. You don't have to ask, what should I do? The script is written. You just act. This is how you protect yourself from your own laziness. You bind your future self with the chains of a plan made by your present self. The ultimate test. Here is the truth. If you cannot work when no one is watching, you are not a leader. You are a follower. You are a follower of your own impulses. You are a follower of the path of least resistance. The void is the ultimate test of character. It strips away the titles, the uniforms, and the social pressure. It leaves only you. Can you sit in a room, alone, with no deadline and produce excellence? Can you maintain a standard of performance when the only person who will know if you fail is you? If you can do this, you become dangerous. You become rare. Because the world is full of people who can follow orders. The world is full of people who can work when the whip is cracked. But the world is starving for people who can drive themselves. When you master the void, you are no longer competing with the masses. You are playing a different game entirely. You are playing the infinite game.
Chapter 9. Absolute Sovereignty. There is a final transition that must occur. We have talked about discipline. We have talked about willpower. We have talked about overriding your impulses and architecting your life. But all of these strategies imply a conflict. They imply that there are two versions of you fighting for the steering wheel, the lazy version and the disciplined version. They imply that life is a constant, exhausting battle to suppress the bad and elevate the good. If you stay in this phase forever, you will burn out. You cannot white-knuckle your way through life. You cannot spend 50 years screaming at yourself in the mirror just to get out of bed. The ultimate goal is not constant warfare. The ultimate goal is peace. Peace does not mean relaxation. Peace means congruence. It means the war is over because the rebels have been crushed, the borders have been secured, and the king is securely on the throne. This state is called absolute sovereignty. Sovereignty is when you stop trying to be disciplined and you simply become disciplined. It is the shift from doing the work to being the person who works. It is the moment when the mask melts into the face and you are no longer performing for the audience of one, you are the audience of one. The identity shift. Let's look at the difference between a smoker who is trying to quit and a non-smoker. Offer a cigarette to the person trying to quit. They say, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." This creates tension. They want the cigarette, but they are using willpower to deny themselves. They still identify as a smoker who is currently depriving themselves of a pleasure. Now offer a cigarette to a person who does not smoke.
They say, "No thanks, I don't smoke." There is no tension, there is no willpower, there is no struggle. It is simply a statement of fact. Their identity is non-smoker, so the action of smoking is incompatible with their existence. Most people are stuck in the trying to quit phase of mediocrity. They say, "I'm trying to get in shape." They say, "I'm trying to build a business." They say, "I'm trying to wake up early." As long as you are trying, you are acknowledging that the behavior is foreign to you. You are an imposter visiting the land of success, hoping you don't get deported. Absolute sovereignty requires a total rewrite of your identity code. You must stop saying, "I can't eat that." You must start saying, "I don't eat that." You must stop saying, "I have to work out." You must start saying, "I am an athlete." When the behavior becomes part of the identity, the resistance disappears. You don't have to force yourself to be you. A dog doesn't have to try to bark. A bird doesn't have to try to fly. A sovereign doesn't have to try to lead. It is simply what they are. The thermostat of character. Your life is regulated by an internal thermostat. If your internal setting is average, you might be able to heat up for a while. You might go to a seminar, get motivated, and work like a maniac for a month. You heat up to excellent, but because your internal thermostat is set to average, your subconscious mind will panic. It will say, "This is too hot. This isn't us." It will find a way to cool you down. You will self-sabotage. You will get sick. You will pick a fight. You will find a way to drop back down to the temperature you believe you deserve. Conversely, if your thermostat is set to sovereign, you cannot stay cold. If you lose all your money, you won't stay broke. You will be uncomfortable with poverty because it contradicts your identity. You will work relentlessly to get back to your set point of wealth. If you gain weight, you won't accept it. You will fix it immediately, not because you should, but because it feels wrong to be in a body that doesn't match your mind. Sovereignty is the act of permanently raising the thermostat. You must look at your current baseline, your income, your fitness, your relationships, and realize that they are exactly where you have set them. You are tolerating them. To become sovereign, you must become intolerant of your own mediocrity. You must decide that good enough is physically painful. When you change the setting, the actions follow automatically. You don't need willpower to cool a room down if the AC is set to 60 degrees. The machine just does the work. The end of the double life. The greatest energy leak in the human soul is the maintenance of a double life. Think about how much energy it takes to lie. You have to remember what you said, who you said it to, and keep the story straight. It is exhausting. Living out of alignment is a spiritual lie. You act professional at work, but you live like a slob at home. You preach health to your kids, but you binge eat in the car. You post about hustle on Instagram, but you procrastinate all day. This fragmentation fractures your power. You are a house divided against itself. You cannot stand.
Absolute sovereignty is the complete integration of the public and private self. It is the state where you are exactly the same person in the dark as you are in the light. When you achieve this, you unlock a massive reservoir of energy. You no longer have to remember who to be. You don't have to put on your game face. You are the game face. Imagine the confidence of a man who has nothing to hide. Imagine walking into a room knowing that if they put a camera in your home, played back your browser history, and audited your bank account, they would find nothing but consistency. That man is dangerous. That man is powerful. He does not fear exposure because exposure would only confirm his integrity. He is solid all the way through, like a bar of gold. Most people are gold-plated lead. They look shiny, but if you scratch them, the dull, soft metal shows through. Be solid gold. The death of blame. A sovereign creates his own weather. Subjects, the weak, the average, the followers, are victims of the weather. I can't work because the economy is bad. I can't focus because my house is noisy. I am unhappy because my spouse is difficult. They outsource their emotional state to the environment. They are leaves blowing in the wind. The sovereign accepts total responsibility. This is the cornerstone of the throne. If the economy is bad, the sovereign pivots. If the house is noisy, the sovereign buys noise-canceling headphones or wakes up earlier. If the relationship is difficult, the sovereign leads the repair or leaves with dignity. There is no they in the language of sovereignty. There is only I. I failed. I chose. I allowed. I created. This is terrifying to the weak, because if you take credit for everything, you have nowhere to hide. But it is liberating to the strong. If you are responsible for the mess, you are capable of cleaning it. If you are the problem, you are also the solution. When you stop blaming your parents, your boss, the government, and your genetics, you reclaim the power you gave them. You take the crown back. The internal validation engine. We are social animals. We crave the dopamine of approval. We want the like. We want the compliment. We want the award. But a king does not beg the peasants for validation. Can you imagine a lion asking a sheep if his roar was loud enough? Can you imagine an eagle asking a pigeon if his flying technique was good? The very idea is absurd. The lion knows he is a lion. The eagle knows he is an eagle. Sovereignty means disconnecting your self-worth from external feedback. This does not mean you ignore advice. It means you ignore judgment. If you launch a project and it fails, and the world laughs at you, the sovereign stays steady. He analyzes the data, learns, and tries again. He does not internalize the laughter. If you succeed and the world applauds, the sovereign stays steady. He acknowledges the win, but he does not inhale the praise. He knows that the crowd is fickle. They cheer today, they crucify tomorrow. You must build your own internal validation engine. You must be the one who stamps approved on your day. At the end of the night, when you look in the mirror, you decide if you won. If the world thinks you lost, but you know you executed your silent standard perfectly, then you won. If the world thinks you won, but you know you cut corners, then you lost.
Your opinion is the only vote that counts in the boardroom of your life. The calm of authority. Watch a true leader in a crisis. Watch a master surgeon when the artery bursts. Watch a captain when the engine fails. Do they scream? Do they run around frantically? Do they panic? No, they slow down. Panic is the behavior of a subject who has lost control. Calm is the behavior of a sovereign who knows he can handle whatever comes. Absolute sovereignty brings a profound, heavy stillness. It is the stillness of a mountain. You stop rushing. You stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for taking up space. When you know, truly know that you are disciplined, that you are capable, and that you are congruent, you don't need to prove it. Weak men are loud. Strong men are quiet. You see this in the quiet confidence of elite performers. They don't brag. They don't talk about what they are gonna do. They just do it. The results speak so loudly that their voice is unnecessary. This calm intimidates the chaos. When you are centered, the world organizes itself around you. People want to follow someone who is not shaking. When you stop shaking, you become the anchor for everyone else. The crown of thorns. Do not mistake sovereignty for luxury. The crown is heavy. To be sovereign means you are never off the clock. You are never allowed to slip back into the comfort of victimhood. You are never allowed to blame. You are never allowed to be average just for a day. It is a burden, but it is a glorious burden. It is the burden of knowing that your life is entirely the result of your own hands. It is the burden of knowing that you could have been anything, and you chose to be this. There is a loneliness at the top. When you stop drinking with the drinking buddies because it violates your constitution, you lose friends. When you stop gossiping because it violates your standard, you are excluded from the circle. When you wake up at 4 a.m. while your partner sleeps, you are physically alone. The sovereign accepts this loneliness as the price of the throne. He understands that most people would rather be comfortable slaves than burdened kings. He does not judge them, but he cannot join them. He has crossed the river and he has burned the boats. There is no going back to the old way. The old version of you, the one who made excuses, the one who sought approval, the one who lived in the shallows, is dead. The final integration. So, how do you achieve this? You don't do it, you accept it. You accept right now, in this moment, that there is no one coming to save you. You accept that the cavalry is not coming. You accept that you are the CEO, the janitor, the strategist, and the soldier. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for the right time. You stop waiting to feel like it. You simply assume the position. Stand up straight, look at your life, look at the mess, look at the potential, and say, mine. It is all yours, the good, the bad, the ugly. Own it all. When you own it, you can change it. When you own the darkness, you can bring the light. This is absolute sovereignty. It is the end of the war within. It is the beginning of the reign. Chapter 10. The Victory That Matters. We have reached the end. We have walked through the dark corridors of the empty room. We have dismantled the lies of the ego. We have built the architecture of will, mastered the void, and crowned the sovereign self. But there is one final question that demands an answer. Why? Why go through all this pain? Why wake up when it is dark? Why say no to the pleasure? Why hold yourself to a standard that no one else sees, no one else understands, and no one else cares about? If the world rewards mediocrity, and it often does, why struggle for mastery? The answer is not money. It is not fame. It is not power. The answer is trust. Not the trust of others. That is a byproduct. The answer is self-trust. The ultimate victory is the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and like what you see, not because you are beautiful, but because you are real, because you are reliable, because you know with absolute certainty that if everything was stripped away, your money, your title, your friends, your reputation, you would still be standing. This chapter is about the payoff. It is about the legacy of the invisible life, the frequency of truth. You cannot hide who you are. You might think you can. You might think that if you dress well, speak confidently, and smile at the right times, people won't know that you are crumbling inside. But humans are highly sensitive radar dishes. We pick up on the frequency. When a man walks into a room who has cheated his way there, he vibrates with anxiety. He is loud, he is defensive, he is constantly scanning the room for validation. He smells like fear. When a man walks into a room who has earned his way there, who has done the shadow work, who is resurrected in private, he vibrates with weight. He is grounded. He is still. He smells like iron. You cannot fake the frequency of iron. This is the first victory, presence. When you lead yourself in the dark, you carry a different energy in the light. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to posture to be respected. Your mere presence commands attention because people can sense the density of your character. They may not know what you do at 4 a.m., but they know you do something that they don't. They sense the discipline in the way you hold eye contact. They sense the integrity in the way you keep your promises. The world is starving for this frequency. We are drowning in fakes, in filters, in influencers who rent Lamborghinis for photo shoots. We are desperate for something solid. When you become solid, you become a magnet. Opportunities, capital, and love are drawn to you, not because you manipulated them, but because you are the most stable thing in a chaotic world. The lighthouse paradox. There is a misconception that leadership is about running around trying to save everyone. We think leading means micromanaging, preaching, and pulling people up the hill. That is amateur leadership. That is exhausting. True leadership is the lighthouse paradox. A lighthouse does not run around the island looking for boats to save. A lighthouse does not scream at the storm. A lighthouse stands. It stays in one place. It keeps its own glass clean. It keeps its own fire burning. And by doing that, by simply being a pillar of light in the darkness, it saves the ships. If the lighthouse decided to run into the water to help, the light would go out and everyone would crash. You are the lighthouse. Your private discipline is the fire. If you neglect your private discipline to help others, you burn out. You become a burden. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot light the way if your own bowl is broken. The most selfish thing you can do is to neglect yourself. The most selfless thing you can do is to perfect yourself. When you lead yourself, you give the people around you the greatest gift possible. An example. You show your children what integrity looks like, not by lecturing them, but by living it. You show your team what excellence looks like, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. You show your partner what love looks like, not by buying gifts, but by being a rock of emotional stability. You become the standard by which they measure themselves. You raise the average of the room just by entering it. The deathbed audit. Let us fast forward. Imagine you are 90 years old. You are lying in a bed. The machine is beeping. The lights are dim. The end is minutes away. In that moment, your bank account balance will be irrelevant. Your follower count will be a joke. Your job title will be a distant memory. In that moment, you will be left with one thing: the movie. Your life will flash before your eyes. But it won't be the Instagram highlight reel. It will be the director's cut. It will show the unedited footage. It will show the moments you quit. It will show the lies you told. It will show the potential you wasted. It will show the fear you let drive the car. If that movie is full of cowardice and compromise, you will die in hell. Not a biblical hell of fire, but a psychological hell of regret. The pain of knowing that you could have been great, but you chose to be comfortable. Now, imagine the other movie. It shows the mornings you woke up when it was cold. It shows the times you told the truth when it cost you money. It shows the times you got back up when no one was watching. It shows a life where you squeezed every ounce of talent out of your soul and left it all on the field. If you watch that movie, you will die in peace. You will die empty. This is the victory that matters. To reach the end of the ride, look at the person you could have been and realize that you are him. To meet your potential and shake his hand as an equal, not look up to him as a stranger. The infinite game. You might be thinking, okay, I get it, so when do I win? When do I get to stop? You don't. That is the hard truth. There is no finish line. You don't get a certificate that says certified sovereign and then get to be lazy for the rest of your life. The moment you stop doing the work, the entropy returns. The weeds grow back. The muscle atrophies. The darkness creeps in. This scares the weak. They want a destination. They want to make it and then retire. But the leader loves this truth. The leader understands that the reward for good work is more work. The reward for discipline is the capacity for heavier discipline. You are playing an infinite game. The goal is not to win the game. The goal is to keep playing. The joy is not in the trophy. The joy is in the training. Once you accept this, the pressure lifts. You stop rushing. You settle into the rhythm of the eternal march. You realize that the empty room is not a prison you have to escape. It is a sanctuary you get to inhabit. You learn to love the cold morning. You learn to love the burn of the last rep. You learn to love the silence of the focus. Because in those moments, you are most alive. You are not numbing yourself with cheap pleasure. You are feeling the raw texture of reality, the passing of the torch. We have spent 10 chapters together. I have given you the tools. I have given you the maps. I have given you the codes, but I cannot do the work for you. This audiobook is just sound waves entering your ears. It is information. Information is useless without execution. You can nod your head. You can feel motivated. You can tell your friends you listened to this. But if you turn this off and go back to your old defaults, this was a waste of time. The door is about to lock. The lights are about to go out. The audience is about to leave. You are about to be alone again. What will happen in the next hour? What will happen in the next 24 hours? Will you apply the silent standard? Will you kill the dictator within? Will you master the void? The beauty of this philosophy is that you can start right now. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to sign up for a course. You don't need permission. You just need to make a choice to stop performing and start being, a choice to stop drifting and start driving, a choice to become the leader you have been waiting for. The final charge. There is a version of you waiting in the future. He is stronger than you. He is wiser than you. He is freer than you. He is looking back at you right now through the fog of time, begging you to do the work, begging you to hold the line, begging you not to quit. He is built by the reps you do today. He is built by the decisions you make in the dark. Do not let him down. The world is noisy. The world is chaotic. The world is lost. Do not join the chaos. Be the structure. Be the signal. Be the sovereign. Lead yourself when no one is watching, so that when the world is watching, you have something worth seeing. The talk is over. The work begins. Go.